Why did Genesis change? Good question. First, we have to know what they changed. You have to look no further than Genesis album from 1983. The most candid recordings of the writing process exist here, and the ideas were developed differently. Like the Mama Laugh was gotten from a rap song, but then in that same album there is a sample from an orchestra. This album features original lyrics and stories, new sampling technology, new drum machines and new influences that the band probably wouldn't have taken earlier. Why do I mention this? Back on the day, most lyrics were based on legends and books. The technology was different and most of the influences were also different. In a sense, the change they were making, besides sound, it's also oriented by new influences. To make the change, you keep looking for a certain sound, and sometimes looking at places that you probably would never look can be of help. So I think that's the reason. Why did Genesis change? Again, Peter Gabriel had a more pastoral voice compared to Phil. The music changed because they wanted to exploit that. Mike Rutherford felt like the band was getting too much stuck in a certain sound. It started with Trick of the Tail. All credits to Tony Banks, but even though he had less credits on Wind and Watering, the sound of the album was strictly Banks. And then the next album has a similar meloromantic sound. This also appears on A Curious Feeling. With Duke, they tried changing it a bit, but then Mike said, "Let's really change this sound, or I leave," and that's when Abacab happened. Luckily for Mike, Peter Gabriel found a new sound by accident, with Phil Collins and Hugh Padgham, and that changed the course for Genesis as well. Even though Duke was the first Genesis album to use drum machines, I don't think that was really what changed the course for Genesis. The heavier use of those things came afterwards, even though they had those drum machines since 1978. Why did Genesis change? Again? Well, it's because of the Battle of Ebbing Forest. You got Ebbing Forest again? Well, it's because they had these beats and they mixed them so much that they probably thought, maybe my beat was better than his beat, but sadly my beat is stuck with this other beat that this guy did, and I don't want this to happen again. So, well, probably a few songs are like this, not all. But for example, I wrote this. If Cinema Show was like And Then There Were Three, then the three beats used would have been a different songs. The beat at the beginning, the beat at the middle, and the beat at the solo would have been different pieces of music, but instead they mixed all together and made the Cinema Show as we know it. If you want to understand more of that, you can watch my other video about making the Cinema Show. Well, so they were probably very tired of seeing their beats mixed with the beats they didn't think they worked anymore. For example, I have another one, That's All from the Genesis album was probably just a Tony Banks beat, and they developed it further. Well, they look back at it and say, well, this is a good beat and that's all. There's nothing more to say about it. When you look back, for example, at other tracks like Supper's Ready, they probably think like this section that we did was better than the other ones. Like Apocalypse in 9/8, no, this is better than Ignaton and Itzagon and his band of Very Men. What are these names? But you know what I am trying to say. They probably if they listen to Supper's Ready, they will be like, oh, I probably will have changed a bit of it because I don't like this beat that this other introduced. And hopefully you understand what I am saying here. Why did Genesis change again? If we go back to the early days, we will find the band saying stuff like, the musical box was becoming an stagnation too. Supper's Ready was becoming the musical box too. Moonlit Night, Cinema Show, and Ebbing Forest were becoming Supper's Ready too. These phrases clearly indicate that the band has always tried to not repeat themselves. What was becoming a 30-minute long track became 3 different 10-minute tracks on Selling England. So they were trimming stuff already, oddly enough, on the most beloved prog rock album from the band. The Lamb sounds completely different to what the band did previously. Same with Trespass and Abacab. The band definitely had shown already that they were able to change when needed to not repeat themselves.